the quiet suburban neighborhood of Oakwood, life seemed to follow a peaceful rhythm. The lawns were neatly trimmed, children played in front yards, and neighbors greeted each other with friendly smiles. However, behind the perfectly manicured fences of one house, a storm was brewing. One that would soon spiral into a series of events no one could have predicted. Before we dive into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from, and if you enjoy this tale, don't forget to subscribe. You're always going to love that. 17-year-old Lucas was known throughout Oakwood for his hard-working nature. Every summer, he mowed lawns for several neighbors, using the money he earned to save for college and help his single mother with bills. His reputation as a reliable and friendly teen made him well-liked, but that all changed when he took on a new client. Mr. Jameson, a middle-aged man living on the corner of Oakwood Drive. Mr. Jameson was a bit of a recluse. His house was slightly run down with an overgrown lawn and peeling paint, but his snide attitude and constant complaints about everyone in the neighborhood were even more noticeable. Despite the hints of neglect, Lucas didn't think much of Mr. Jameson's reputation. He had always been polite when passing by, so when Mr. Jameson asked him to mow his lawn for a fee, Lucas was eager to help. The first few days went smoothly. Lucas showed up early, started the mower, and diligently worked to trim the edges, removing thick weeds and dandelions that had overtaken the yard. He was determined to do a good job, knowing how much the extra money would help his family. So, however, as the days passed, Mr. Jameson's mood seemed to change. He grew more irritable, barking orders from his porch, demanding that Lucas mow the lawn exactly as he wanted it. One hot afternoon, as Lucas was finishing up the last part of the lawn, he noticed Mr. Jameson storming out of his house, muttering under his breath. It wasn't unusual for Mr. Jameson to be upset, but at that day, Lucas was in for a shock. "I've had enough of you," Mr. Jameson suddenly yelled, causing Lucas to stop in his tracks. "You're making too much noise, and I don't like the way you're doing this. I'm calling the cops." Before Lucas could respond, Mr. Jameson was already on his phone, pacing furiously. The teen stood there, stunned and confused, not understanding what had triggered such a reaction. All he was doing was mowing the lawn he had been hired to mow. Within minutes, the police arrived, lights flashing outside Mr. Jameson's property. The officers listened to Mr. Jameson's complaint before turning to Lucas, who nervously explained his side of the story. "I'm just mowing the lawn," Lucas said, trying to stay calm. "I have permission from Mr. Jameson, and I've been doing this for a week now." Seeing nothing illegal or disruptive about Lucas's actions, the officers politely told him to continue working, but warned Mr. Jameson that calling the cops over such a trivial matter was an abuse of police resources. With that, they left, and Lucas tried to shake off the strange encounter. He had never expected such a fuss over something as simple as lawn care. But what Lucas didn't know was that Mr. Jameson's actions were about to backfire in ways he couldn't have imagined. A few days later, while mowing another lawn, Lucas noticed a large moving truck outside Mr. Jameson's house. To his surprise, a group of officials walked up to the front door, followed by men with clipboards and paperwork. Neighbors gathered behind their windows, curious about what was happening. To me, it was this sound of a lot of behind the scenes. The officials informed Mr. Jameson that his home was being repossessed due to numerous code violations, most notably his overgrown lawn and general disrepair. It turned out that Mr. Jameson had failed to pay his property taxes for years and had ignored multiple warnings from the authorities. His combative nature had led him to disregard the warnings, thinking he could handle everything on his own. And, the final straw had been his recent complaint about Lucas. The local authorities discovered that Mr. Jameson had been using the police to settle personal grievances with neighbors, further tarnishing his reputation as a nuisance throughout the town. After conducting a thorough investigation into his property, the authorities decided to seize his house as part of an ongoing effort to recover unpaid taxes. As the movers loaded up Mr. Jameson's belongings, neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, whispering among themselves. They had always known he was difficult, but no one had expected his actions to lead to such a dramatic downfall. Lucas, standing nearby with his mower, couldn't help but feel a mixture of disbelief and satisfaction. He had just been trying to earn a living and help out a neighbor, but in the end, it was Mr. Jameson's bitterness and petty anger that had led to his ruin. For Lucas, it was a bittersweet victory. He never imagined that mowing lawns could lead to such a turn of events. As the moving truck pulled away, he glanced over at his own house, where his mother stood on the porch with a proud smile. She had always taught him that kindness and hard work would eventually pay off. And in this case, it seemed that karma had taken care of the rest. The lesson was clear. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness and hard work can turn the tide, while the bitterness of others only brings their downfall. And Lucas, with a quiet sense of justice, knew he had made the right choice all along.